The state of post-Roe America is going as expected. Let's share some details out of what is going on in Arizona. So on Friday, a judge lifted a decades-old injunction, which had blocked an anti-abortion rights law dating back to 1864, before Arizona was even established as a state and allowed the ban to be enforced. Pima County Superior Court Judge Kellie said in her ruling that Roe v. Wade, the 1973 U.S. Supreme Court ruling, which affirmed the constitutional right to abortion care, had been the basis for barring the 1864 law from being enforced. But since Roe was overturned in June, she said that the injunction should be annulled. Reporting from Common Dreams, Johnson's decision will unleash a near total abortion ban in Arizona, said Planned Parenthood of Arizona, with the law including no exceptions for people whose pregnancies result from rape or incest. Under the law, anyone who helps a pregnant person obtain abortion care can be sentenced to up to 5 years in prison. The law does include an exemption for medical emergency, according to the New York Times, but as Common Dreams has reported, such an exemption in practice has already resulted in a Texas woman being forced to carry a non-viable pregnancy until her health was deemed sufficiently in danger before a doctor provided care. Governor Doug Ducey has said that the 15-week ban he signed in March would supersede the century-old ban. But Attorney General Mark Brnovich, a fellow Republican, has argued that the older ban should take precedence. Mr. Brnovich filed the motion to vacate the injunction from 1973. He went on to say, the Attorney General, Brnovich, I have and will continue to protect the most vulnerable Arizonans. Arizona remains one of the most pro-life states in the country. Reporting from the New York Times says women seeking abortions had already been traveling from Arizona to New Mexico, California, and Nevada amid the legal turmoil that erupted in Arizona after Roe was struck down. And providers say they anticipated those waves would now swell. So, Cenk, what do you make of this? This law is from 1864, and it's taking precedent over laws that were passed in March.
Yeah, well, okay, I have two different opinions, Jessica, depending on the issue. Okay, so because there are two different issues in this case. One is the law, and the other is policy. How do we feel about it? Legally, I don't think that they're wrong. I think that probably the 1864 law does apply, and it was reaffirmed in 1907, we clarified, and it was codified. So, but now in this new post-Roe world, well, it's our job to defeat them. And so now the great majority of people in Arizona, as well as the rest of the country, are pro-choice, and they're very, very clear about that. But sad day, if right now the Republicans in Arizona say, "Oh no, we love it. We want these barbaric laws that the people of Arizona do not want." Well, then in a functioning democracy, what happens next is you vote them out and you put in people who agree with you. But if you don't, you got no one to blame other than yourself in Arizona.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the voters in Arizona are pretty much in line with what you're saying. So there's a poll that's the Arizona Public Opinion Pulse. It's run by OH Predictive Insights. And according to the latest AZ Pop, so Arizona Public Opinion Pulse survey, 52% of registered voters in Arizona oppose the Supreme Court overturning Roe versus Wade. So that's not a huge majority, but it is a majority. They've basically said, we agree with the overturning of Roe when it comes to the Supreme Court. But when you pose the question a little bit differently, it suggests that maybe the folks that have been talking about states' rights so much actually got through. But it turns out the people within those states might be not on the side of the abortion ban. So the vast majority, 71% of voters in Arizona, oppose making abortion illegal. Voters either believe abortion should be legal and available, that's 39%, or that politicians should not be able to prevent someone from making that decision for themselves, that's the remaining 33%. It gets more interesting. So this polling was conducted by NARAL, and 9 in 10, so 90% agree that each of us should have the freedom to decide how and when we start to grow a family, free from political interference. This includes every Democrat, 100%, along with 89% of independents and 82% of Republicans. 4/5, so that's 82%, agree that some kind of one-size-fits-all law won't work here. And people are making, personal medical decisions. Large majority of Democrats, so 91%, agree with this. 85% of independents, 74% of Republicans agree with this, as do 85% of white voters and 75% of Latinx voters. So this is super interesting, right? Because 52%, not a significant majority, saying they agree or they disagree with Roe being overturned. But a vast majority of people in Arizona believe this is a personal decision, right? If you're the Republican Party, you talk about personal liberties and freedoms quite a lot, and then you're legislating in the complete other direction. It turns out the majority of voters in Arizona are not so supportive of an abortion ban, which is exactly what they're getting, Cenk. So it goes back to what you're saying. If we really had a government that was buying for the people, it turns out Arizona wouldn't have this law in place.
Yeah, so this goes to further support what we've been saying on the show all along, which is number one, politics is all about branding and framing. So number two, that is why corporate Democrats doing such a terrible job of branding is really material to your rights, right? And American media always branding and framing in favor of the right wing on economic issues, and oftentimes on social issues like this one, is also really harmful to the voters and to American government overall in politics. So let me explain a little bit further what I mean. Look, here's a situation where if you frame it as, hey, should you make decisions about your own body and your own family and how you plan your family, everybody agrees, including overwhelming majorities of Republicans, over 80%, right? Obviously, get the government off our bodies and our families and let us make the decisions. But if you say, hey, do you agree with the right-wing Supreme Court? Like a giant chunk of those Republicans go, I have been triggered. I got a Pavlovian word. I will now have a Pavlovian reaction. Tucker Carlson and all of right-wing media has convinced me that right-wing is positive. If Supreme Court goes right-wing, I love it. But it just took away the rights that you say you care a lot about and want. It does not matter. I am now activated. I will vote for whatever right-wingers tell me, right? And by the way, like I'm joking around about the tone, but that's actually literally what they do. And the polling just showed you that. If you say, hey, this is what it actually is, they go, oh, well, God, I mean, I want freedom. I want freedom. And I don't want my wife. I don't want anybody messing with her either. OK, they say, but the right wing says we should. God damn it, we should. You know, we should. It's the same poll. It's the same people. It's amazing. It's amazing. So that's why when the Democrats never fight against Republicans, it leaves all the framing to the Republicans. And that is why oftentimes people will vote against their own self-interest. Now, if you had a strong Democratic Party in Arizona, and you don't, you have the weakest possible one with Mark Kellie, Kristen Sinema, 2 out of the top 5 worst Democratic senators, constantly reinforcing Republican framing. In fact, Sinema did that today. It's later in the program on a different issue. Oh, the Republicans are right. The Republicans are right. Mitch McConnell's right. Every other Republicans are right about everything. Right? When you do that, well, then people think, oh, I guess the Republicans must be right. And so I'll give away my rights because I heard from both sides and the media that the Republicans were right. So here you are. In Arizona, if you're an actual voter and you're among the 71% who say, no, I definitely want abortion to be legal. Abortion. I'm not even general framing. You're like at 90%, right? But like specifically about abortion, 71%. If you're among that 71%, make sure you vote that way. There isn't a single Republican that agrees with that in politics. Republican politics, if you're voting for a Republican, you are voting to have your freedom taken away as a woman. That's just a flat out fact. If you found the unicorn, there's like a Republican somewhere hiding out in Pennsylvania and he's pro-choice. Okay, great. But otherwise, it's a fact that at the national level, if it's not 100%, it's 99% of Republicans who say, yes, we will definitely take your rights away. So vote like it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just sad that we're in this place in our politics where you have to get like a three-word phrase right in order to win people over on an issue instead of just really substantively discussing the issue itself. So we've accepted the framing, unfortunately, for far too long that people who are against a woman's choice about abortion, for them to say that they're pro-life. Right? It's really hard to argue against someone when they're like, well, I'm pro-life, and because you disagree with me, you are not pro-life. By accepting their little slogan there, we've put ourselves in an awful position because so often when a woman is pregnant and chooses to get an abortion, it is because her life or the child's life is in danger. We've seen so many cases where women have to travel to other states when they have unviable pregnancies, or they have to carry that baby to term, ultimately to give birth to a baby that is just going to have to be buried anyway. And it's a terribly sad situation. And if you are pro-life, really, maybe you wouldn't want situations like that playing out. It's a complicated issue, and that's precisely why it should be one made between a person and their doctor, not one made by politicians and the government. But this framing really tricked a lot of people because, as you can see, when we talk about the issue with the words that really more accurately describe what we're dealing with here, right? The freedom to make a personal decision about your family, suddenly the polling shows people are supportive. So it's like, what are the Democrats doing with all of their time when they could be coming up with a better phrase to use to describe the issue? We just needed a three-word phrase. We could have called it like the Freedom for Family Choice Act, but instead we just accepted the framing of pro-life and pro-abortion. And now we're here, and it's really sad.
Yeah. Look, last thing, guys, is 7 years ago, if you told people, a reality show clown is going to be the president of the United States, the American Capitol is going to be attacked, and 40% of the country is going to think it was terrific that it was attacked. The former president is going to steal top secret documents about nuclear weapons, and 40% of the country is going to think that's fantastic that he did that. And abortion rights are going to be gone, and abortion is going to be illegal in Arizona. Everyone would have told you you're the craziest person they ever met. There's no way in the world that's going to happen. And all of that happened while Democratic leadership went nothing, nothing, nothing. Total, utter losers, okay? Joe Biden barely won. He won the popular vote by a lot, but the electoral count, he only won by 43,000 votes in 3 states. The Democratic Party is totally and utterly incompetent in fighting back. And you have to understand something, guys. Most people are not knee deep in politics like we are or like you are, right? Most people don't know anything about politics. So that's why those 3 words framing on any given issue matters a lot, because they're just going to hear it. They're going to see the headline. They're going to hear it for a second, and they're going to make their decision based on that. But our idiot leadership doesn't understand anything about framing. They're like, oh, most Republicans are great and reasonable and wonderful. We found a tiny slice that are ultra MAGA. But other than that, you should vote for Republicans. That is not correct framing, you morons. Okay, and finally, you have to remember the right-wing voters know nothing. You have to speak very clearly to them. That's why, if you remember the Obamacare protests, I mean, like, look, that was so emblematic. Number one, they said, oh, I can't believe the banks got those giant bailouts. We're against the bailouts for the banks. Koch brothers pull up in buses and lead them to an anti-Obamacare rally. They don't even notice. They're like, oh, yeah, goddamn. No banks now. Banks are great now. Okay, goddamn government. And you remember the signs? They say, get your government hands off our Medicare. Medicare is a government program. They don't understand anything. You have to be super clear in your messaging. But the Democratic Party thinks it's impolite to do that because then some of their donors might get mad. We just lost our rights. Arizona is now the 14th state to make abortion illegal since Roe was overturned. Still, the Democratic reaction is one of complete indifference and incompetence. Get in the goddamn game already.
Yeah, and the people who are the fiercest advocates for taking away our right to abortion are often these like MAGA types, right? The theocratic fascists who are, Christians. They want a white nationalist country. Some of them are saying this completely plainly. Others are just describing the thing but rejecting the title. And we have the Democratic Party donating huge sums of money in Republican primary races to the most extreme MAGA candidates because they think they have a better shot against them in the general. That's what the Democratic Party is doing to fight. Instead of really thinking carefully about messaging, instead of organizing with people and knocking doors and having conversations about the issues to break through all of this propaganda that we just described people are being fed every single day, no, instead they're going to ensure that MAGA Republicans get on the ballot in November.